Hello everyone, the discussion topic is spinal cord. Spinal cord is the part of central nervous system. So during examination, the first thing of spinal cord is anatomical position. So you have to first identify the spinal cord, then you have to hold the spinal cord in anatomical position like this manner. This is viscera of spinal cord. Then you can identify which one is the anterior portion, which one is the posterior portion, which one is the superior portion, which one is the inferior portion. The inferior portion is characterized by a horse-tail-like structure that is chorda equina. So the chorda equina lies inferiorly, and the upper end or the superior end is blunt, which is continuous with medulla oblongata. Then anterior and posterior. The anterior surface or anterior portion is marked by anteromedian fissure. This is anteromedian fissure. A marked groove in the anterior portion of the spinal cord is the anteromedian fissure, which lodges an anterior spinal artery. Then the posterior portion. So this is the posterior portion, which is characterized by posteromedian sulcus. So the basic difference between sulcus and the fissure is the conspicuousness or the deepness. The fissure is deeper than the sulcus. So the posteromedian sulcus is a shallow groove in the posterior portion, and the posterior surface are also characterized by presence of root of the spinal nerve. Here is the root of the spinal nerve. So during examination, we have to tell or answer spinal cord like this manner. This is viscera of spinal cord with associated structure. The chorda equina lies inferiorly and the upper end is blunt, and anterior portion is characterized by anteromedian fissure. In associated question, you may be asked, what are the associated structures present in this viscera? First of all, the chorda equina. Here is the chorda equina. We will discuss chorda equina later. Here is the chorda equina. Then meninges, part of meninges. So this is the meninges, and this is the dura mater of meninges. This is the dura mater of meninges, and here is the arachnoid mater of meninges, and the pia mater of meninges, the outer covering of the spinal cord. And the another structure presents in the spinal root, the root of the spinal nerve. Here is the root of the spinal nerve. So these all are the associated structure. Now come to the extension and length of the spinal cord and support of the spinal cord and external features of spinal cord. The total length of spinal cord is 45 centimeter. This is very important for anatomy examination. And what are the other structures present in body that are 45 centimeter are the femur of adult, the sartorius muscle, the thoracic duct, and the vas deferens in case of male. These structures are 45 centimeter in human body. This is very important for your viva examination or oral examination in anatomy. And the extension of a spinal cord. The spinal cord is extend from the upper margin of the arch of the atlas to the lower border of first lumbar vertebra. The lower border or lower limit of first lumbar vertebra, which is correspond to the transpyloric plane. In associated question, you also may be asked what are the structure that presents in the transpyloric plane. Then you answer in like this manner: the fundus of the gallbladder, the lower end of spinal cord, the hyla of both kidney, and the pyloric end of stomach. These structures are present in the transpyloric plane, and transpyloric plane is the lower limit of spinal cord. Now come to the upper limit. The one upper limit is the upper margin of the arch of the atlas, and another bony landmark is the lower margin of the foramen magnum. And the most important and most believable segment or most believable junction of spinal cord is the origin of first spinal nerve. This is the visceral limit of spinal cord. Above the junction of the first spinal nerve, the portion of the central nervous system is medulla oblongata, and from the origin of the first spinal nerve, the portion is known as spinal cord. So this is the extension of spinal cord. And in case of children and young adult, the spinal cord is elongated to lower border of third lumbar vertebra. Now come to the external appearance and external features of spinal cord. This is very important for examination. The external features is spinal cord presents cauda equina, and this is cauda equina. And to identify, this is cauda equina. So this horsetail-like structure is cauda equina. So to identify the cauda equina, you have to know the another two terms. One is conus medullaris and another is phylum terminale. The tapering end of spinal cord is known as conus medullari, which is correspond the lower limit of first lumbar vertebra. This is conus medullari. That is the tapering end of spinal cord. This is the tapering end of spinal cord, which situated in the lower limit of first lumbar vertebra. In associated question, you also may be asked the lower limit of subarachnoid space or lower limit of cerebrospinal fluid, that is the lower limit of second sacral vertebra. And from conus medullari, the another structure is elongated. This thread-like structure, elongated thread-like structure, it is known as phylum terminale. So in examination, you may be asked what is phylum terminale. Then you answer like this manner: phylum terminale is the prolongation of pyometer. I repeat, phylum terminale is the prolongation of pyometer. And the extension of phylum terminale is from conus medullaris to the posterior surface of coccyx. Come to the cauda equina. The word cauda means the tail and the equina means horse. So the cauda equina means tail of the horse. The structure or the lower spinal nerve which encircles around the phylum terminale, it gives it appearance of a tail of a horse. So this structure is known as cauda equina. So in examination, if you ask what is cauda equina, then you have to tell the lower spinal nerve along with the phylum terminale resembles a tail of a horse, and the whole structure is known as cauda equina. Now come to the enlargement of spinal cord. There are two enlargement of spinal cord. One is cervical enlargement and another is lumbosacral or sacral enlargement. So now come to the cervical enlargement. So here is the cervical enlargement. You can identify this in this era. This is thoracic segment. This thoracic segment is thinner than the cervical segment. Cervical segment is broader. This occurred due to cervical enlargement. Now come to the causes and extension of cervical enlargement. Cervical enlargement is situated from third cervical spinal cord segment to second thoracic spinal cord segment. I repeat, third cervical to second thoracic spinal cord segment. The reason behind cervical enlargement is to produce our brachial plexus that supplies our upper limb. The gray matter of cervical and upper two thoracic spinal cord segment are enlarged to form brachial plexus, and the enlargement of gray matter gives enlargement of cervical segment of spinal cord. Same in the sacral region. From first lumbar vertebra to from first lumbar spinal cord segment to second sacral spinal cord segment. I repeat, from first lumbar spinal cord segment to second sacral spinal cord segment, there is another enlargement which is known as lumbosacral enlargement. And the reason behind lumbosacral enlargement is to produce lumbosacral plexus. The gray matter of lumbar and sacral segment of spinal cord are enlarged, and that resembles another enlargement in the lumbosacral region, that is known as lumbosacral enlargement. Now come to the support of the spinal cord. And we see the cylindrical shaped spinal cord which is situated in the vertebral canal. So it is supported by our vertebral canal, that means it is supported by vertebra. But internal support of spinal cord is maintained from above by rostral continuation with medulla oblongata. From below, the lower attachment of phylum terminally, and from lateral side it is supported by ligamentum denticulatum. I repeat, that is ligamentum denticulatum. In examination you may be asked what is ligamentum denticulatum, then you answer like this: the ligamentum denticulatum are the fold of pia mater. I repeat, it is fold of pia mater, and it gives just like appearance of teeth, so it is called the ligamentum denticulatum. And in examination you also may be asked what are the basic difference between the meninges of spinal cord and the meninges of brain. Then you can tell the dura mater of the brain is 2 layer, but in case of spinal cord the dura mater is single layer. In case of brain there are meningeal fold occur from dura mater, but in case of spinal cord the meningeal fold occur from pia mater, and the pia mater, the fold of pia mater are the ligamentum denticulatum, which gives the lateral support of the spinal cord. So these all things keeps spinal cord in position. Now come to the blood supply of spinal cord. The spinal cord is supplied by anterior and posterior spinal artery. The anterior spinal artery arises directly from the vertebral artery. 2 artery arises from vertebral artery, then it unites to from anterior spinal artery, and which lodges in the anterior median fissure. So this is anterior median fissure. The anterior spinal artery supplies the anterior 2/3 of the spinal cord. Now come to the posterior spinal artery. There are 2 posterior spinal artery in 2 posterolateral group. Here is 2 posterolateral sulcus or 2 posterolateral sulcus or 2 posterolateral group, and which lodges to posterior spinal artery. And posterior spinal artery arises from directly from vertebral artery or from posterior inferior cerebellar artery. Now come to the another arterial support of spinal cord is given by segmental artery, and the segmental artery arises from deep cervical artery in case of cervical segment, then posterior intercostal artery in case of thoracic segment, then lumbar artery or ascending lumbar artery in case of lumbar and sacral segment. And each segmental artery are reinforced the longitudinal anterior and posterior spinal artery, and which is corresponds the spinal root. This is all about the arterial supply of spinal cord. Now come to the venous drainage. The perpendicular veins are drains into the internal vertebral plexus. The perpendicular veins of spinal cord are drains into the internal vertebral plexus. This is all about the artery supply, blood supply of spinal cord. This is very important for examination. Now come to the microscopic or histological structure of spinal cord. As we know, the spinal cord is the portion of central nervous system. So spinal cord, histological structure of spinal cord is divided into 2 headings. One is the gray matter and another is the white matter. The appearance or the structure of spinal cord is formed by the inner gray matter and outer white matter. I repeat, inner gray matter and outer white matter. For your information, in brain there is the outer gray matter and inner white matter. So this figure shows the histological structure of spinal cord. It shows the inner light staining gray matter. This is the gray matter, inner light staining, and outer dark staining white matter. This is outer dark staining white matter. In examination, you must be asked what is gray matter and what is white matter. The gray matter are formed by neuronal cell body, then dendrite, then non-myelinated portion of axon, then neuroglia and blood vessel. Now come to the white matter. White matter are white, so we can assume that the white matter are formed by myelinated nerve fiber. So white matter is formed by myelinated axon, myelinated dendrite, and neuroglia and blood vessel. Now come to the structure of spinal cord. The gray matter, this is the gray matter. The gray matter, this is one half, this is another half. Two half of gray matter are connected by gray commissure. This is gray commissure, and center of the gray commissure is marked by central canal. This is central canal, and the lining of the central canal is ependymal cell, and the content of central canal is cerebrospinal fluid. Now come to the gray matter of this spinal cord, and these gray matter are divided into three columns: anterior gray column, posterior gray column, and lateral gray column. I repeat, anterior gray column, posterior gray column, and lateral gray column. The lateral gray column are not present in all spinal cord segment, but it present in case of thoracic, in case of lumbar, and in case of sacral spinal cord segment. And the lateral gray column is correspond with autonomic nervous system. That means the preganglionic nerve fiber, that means the preganglionic nerve fiber of sympathetic chain arises from the lateral gray column of thoracic and lumbar spinal cord segment. The preganglionic nerve fiber for parasympathetic outflow arises from the lateral gray horn or lateral gray column of sacral spinal cord segment. And when you tell the spinal cord segment, then you must be asked what is the spinal cord segment, and each spinal cord segment is the area from where the rootlets of a single spinal nerve arises. I repeat, the area of spinal cord from where the rootlets of single spinal nerve arises is known as spinal cord segment. Now come to the anterior gray column and posterior gray column. Anterior gray column corresponds with motor nerve supply, and posterior gray column corresponds with the sensory nerve supply. And in case of posterior gray column or posterior horn, there are some nucleus, and they are namely substantia gelatinosa. These are not visible in like this picture. These are these are not light microscopic structure. These are electron microscopic structure. So this is not possible to show in this figure. One is substantia gelatinosa, another is nucleus proprius, another is nucleus dorsalis, and the last one is visceral afferent nucleus. And the anterior gray column or the motor gray column of spinal cord corresponds with motor supply of the region which is supplied by the spinal spinal cord segment or the spinal nerves, like the nerve for muscles of neck and the nucleus for diaphragm are situated in the cervical spinal cord segment. And the outer appearance of the spinal cord and the outer appearance of the anterior grey horn is blunt and the posterior grey horn is sharp. So this is posterior grey horn. Now come to the white matter. The dark staining white matter are divided into two fasciculi. One is fasciculus gracilis, another is fasciculus cuneatus. Fasciculus gracilis are present throughout the spinal cord, but fasciculus cuneatus present up to upper thoracic spinal cord segment. This is all about the histological structure of spinal cord. In associated question, you also may be asked what is spinal nerve. As we discussed spinal nerve formation of spinal nerve in our previous lecture, so I repeat it in short. The spinal nerve are formed by union of dorsal root and ventral root of corresponding spinal cord segment. I repeat, the spinal nerve are formed by union of dorsal root and ventral root of corresponding spinal cord segment. Now come to the development of spinal cord. As spinal cord is part of central nervous system, so it developed from neural tube. Spinal cord is developed from neural tube. Which part? Caudal part. Caudal part of neural tube. Cranial part of neural tube is developed in brain. So the further development of spinal cord is it shows three developing layer actually. Three layers are germinal layer, mantle layer, and marginal layer. The mantle layer forms the gray matter of spinal cord, and the marginal layer forms the white matter of spinal cord. And the ependymal cells are derived from neuroepithelial cell from ependymum, and the microglia are derived from mesenchymal cell. And now come to the development of the meninges of the spinal cord. The dura mater is derived from mesoderm of the mesoderm that surrounds the neural tube, and the pia mater and arachnoid mater arises from the neural crest cell. Now come to the congenital anomaly of development of spinal cord. The congenital anomaly of spinal cord is the spina bifida. Spina bifida is the condition in which the incomplete vertebral arches and the spines of one or more adjacent vertebra. And what are the types of spina bifida? One is spina bifida occulta, another is spina bifida cystica. In spina bifida occulta, it occurs there is only defect in development of the vertebral arch. There is no developmental defect in neuronal cell. But in case of spina bifida cystica, there is severe neural tube defect in which neural tissue or meninges protrude through a defect of the vertebral arches and skin, and it forms a cyst-like appearance. And it is of following types. So these are spina bifida with meningocele occur when only fluid-filled meninges protrude through the vertebral defect. I repeat, when only fluid-filled meninges protrude through vertebral defect is known as meningocele with spina bifida. And spina bifida with meningomyelocele or meningomyelocele, it occurs when the meninges and spinal cord projects through the vertebral defect. And another term is spina bifida with myelochysis. The spina bifida with myelochysis occurs when the neural tube fails to close, resulting in flattened mass. I repeat, when the neural tube fails to close, it resulting in flattened mass of neuronal tissue on the surface of the back. It is known as spina bifida with myelochysis. So this is all about the anatomy of spinal cord. If you have any query or further inquiry about spinal cord, then you can comment in our comment section, or you can post in Kalosam BD study group. Thanks everyone, and stay with us.